And let's talk to Jake Berry, who is a Tory MP. He's also former chairman of the Conservative Party, and he joins us right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia. I'm live in the hall here in Manchester. I'm so pleased to be speaking to you on your new show.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I have to say, I'm so pleased you're there, so I don't have to be. It looks very glamorous and fun, as Tory conferences often are. Jake Berry, look, you're one of these MPs who've been signing letters saying to the Chancellor, "Oh, don't put up our taxes. We won't agree to any budget in November that will put up our taxes." But who was suggesting putting up taxes again?
Well, Julia, look, just to be really clear, I'm one of 33 MPs who haven't signed a letter to the Chancellor, but have signed a pledge, not to the Conservative Party or the Prime Minister, but direct to our constituents, in my case, people who live in Rosendale and Darwin, that we will no longer support taxes going up. Because the reason taxes go up, and I'm going to let you in a little secret here, Julia, the reason taxes keep going up isn't because public spending is too high or because pensions are too generous, it's because members of Parliament keep voting for them to go up. And that's why me and 33 of my colleagues, soon to be increased in number shortly, have said enough is enough. With tax at 37% of GDP, we cannot anymore just try and dip people's pockets or borrow more money. We have to take the difficult decisions about long-term reform of our public services.
Well, we all want long-term reform of our public services and we all want lower taxes. But the trouble is there's this small matter of lots of people, MPs, media, many in the public, demanding that we shut down our economy and we lock people in our homes, we close down businesses and we pay people not to work for the best part of 18 months. I know, it's a complete surprise to all of us that we've now got no money left and we're hugely in debt. Our economy's in the doldrums. Not as bad as many had feared and expected, but nevertheless in the doldrums. How are we going to pay for everything? How are we going to pay the interest on our debt, which is about the same as we now spend on our schools? How are we going to do it without, as some people say, either raising taxes or cutting spending somewhere else?
Well, look, you're right. I mean, let's look at that COVID debt, because that's what the country does at times of massive crisis. It borrows money rather than taxes money. But the only way you can get out of debt, as the government knows, is to grow the economy. And I may be a bit old-fashioned, but, I support the government sometimes when it puts taxes up on cigarettes because people shouldn't smoke or alcohol, although I must admit I do like the odd drink. But if you put tax up on employing people or running a business, sort of national insurance or corporation tax, it doesn't encourage people to go out there in their business and employ new people or grow their business. That's where I think the government is going wrong. It's the sort of economics of the blob, or blobonomics as I like to call it. And the only way we can bring that to an end is if MPs draw a line in the concrete and say we will no longer vote for taxes to go up. That's why the tax pledge that I and 32 of my other colleagues have signed is so important. I know it's something that members here at Tory Party Conference are getting behind, and I hope it's something we can drive into UK politics to try and change the way we do business.
Well, the Chancellor has said in a round of interviews that, look, it's not about cutting taxes right now, it's about cutting inflation, and getting inflation down is the most important thing, because effectively that's a tax on all of us, every day of the week and everything that we do, and he is right about that. But in terms of tackling what we spend, a lot of people feel, as I've just been saying in my opener, we get taxed a lot, but we don't really get very much for it. We haven't got first-class education, we haven't got first-class healthcare, we haven't got any new runways or airports or reservoirs or nuclear power stations. I mean, we don't seem to spend the money on anything that people actually want. We haven't got housing being built en masse. So I don't know where the money's going. But do you support the Chancellor when he talks about tackling, for instance, the work shite? This idea that, we've had this before, the workers, not the shirkers. We're on the side of the workers, not the shirkers. Or is this just another bit of talk that sounds great at party conference and everyone will clap, but nothing's going to come of it?
Well, the first thing is, let me just take issue with you on the public services point, because in terms of education, I appreciate the NHS is struggling, lots of public services are creaking at the seam. But in terms of education, it's really important to me. I've got 3 kids, all of whom are in state schools. We've actually never had a better education system in terms of outcomes. So that's something where I think as Conservatives we can point to.
If you give everyone an A or a 9, then it's fine.
A real success. Well, I think we can say we've had real success, and that's using international comparators and ignoring the COVID blip.
Oh, let's just don't worry about that. No, don't worry about that. A bunch of children get taught anything for a year and a half. don't worry about that. That's nothing.
In terms of their results. Julia, let me finish, please. The point is about the Chancellor sort of looking to crack down on people, not who can't work, but who won't work. Now, that's something we all intrinsically support. But as my mother would have said if she was still with us today, is handsome is as handsome does. So I absolutely support Jeremy Hunt in his newly found zeal to try and ensure that people who can work do work. I'll judge him by results, just like all of my voters in Rosendale and Darwin. And the other thing I just slightly take issue with is inflation is not a tax. Yes, it does hit low-paid household. Yes, it does hit the poorest the hardest. It's absolutely the right thing for the government to focus on bringing down. But that doesn't mean we can ignore the fact that we have the highest tax burden really in history in this country. I, with 32 of my other colleagues, have said thus far and no further. Obviously, we would all like tax cuts, but you've got to draw the line somewhere, and that's what we've done with the Great British Tax Pledge.
Jake Berry, appreciate you joining us, Conservative MP.
Julia, thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Former chair of the Conservative Party. Thank you for joining us live there.